Pleasure. Let's start with what's in the news today. The unfortunate death of Ethiopia's Prime Minister Meles Zenawi. How might this affect the Lamu? We have a Lamu project from, it's called a LAPSET project that runs all the way to Ethiopia. And a lot of the states, especially Kenya, South Sudan and Ethiopia, have a big stake in this.
LAPSET has got several elements. One is rail, the other is road,
yes,
and the other is oil pipeline.
Yes.
The oil pipeline currently is talking about putting a refinery in Lamu. But I think there's a change now already talking about putting a refinery in Isiolo.
Yes.
I think that for us is the much better option, is going to Isiolo, whereby you can tap Uganda, you can tap Sudan, you can tap the Kenyan oil, and also the discoveries that are there in Ethiopia. And I think because of the viability of the whole project,
yes,
the death of Meles Zenawi, I don't think will actually have an impact on that project because it actually makes sense for all the countries.
So it is not based on the leadership, and if indeed President Kibaki in Kenya left or the President Salva Kiir in South Sudan, the project would go on?
I can't say that wholeheartedly. Yes. What we have to have in place is a heads of agreement across all the states around their investment in this project. Currently, it's only about the corridor. But I think the whole issue of monetization of oil is one that has got to be addressed in a different way.
Yes.
Currently, Uganda is talking about building a small refinery. Kenya is talking about if we find oil, you're going to export it. Ethiopia has found a certain amount of oil, though not large enough. But rather than developing individual countries, if you put the countries together and you had a world-class petrochemical complex, that will be much better.
Yes.
The cost to market will be much lower. We'll be able to go much further down the value chain in terms of getting petrochemicals, getting medicines, and so forth and so on. So I think it's much better to go down that route.
All right, but very quickly before we leave oil, there's a lot of still exploration work going on here. Do we see any time in the near future actual commercial exploitation?
From finding oil to commercial exploitation, 5 to 7 years.
Yes.
So yes, I mean, Uganda found theirs in 2006. They're just getting to the point where they're actually talking about getting oil out of the ground. Ngamia won this year, and another 5 years, 2017, 2018, before we get that. So we're talking maybe between 2015 and 2020 is when you're going to begin seeing the impacts of the current exploration.
Let's talk about power. Just the other day, President Kibaki inaugurated the largest power project in the country. It's a geothermal project, Olkaria 4. We still have a massive shortfall in terms of power in this country. How do we deal with this?
I think we have to have a mix of government-funded exploration and private sector investment. And I think the whole model of private sector investment has got to be re-looked at again.
Yes.
And the whole of the power and the cost to the grid. And I think there's been various conferences that have been held over the last couple of weeks to try and look at a different model for saying that if I'm going to put in a geothermal power plant, what is it going to cost me, and yes, what is it going to cost to the economy?
Yes.
I think the cost to the economy is a more crucial one, because if we can't bring it in at a good cost, then there's no point bringing it in at all.
Exactly.
We've got to bring our energy costs down so we can encourage investment in the country. And that we're looking at, well, between about 8 to 10 cents per kilowatt hour.
But at the point right now, we're still relying a lot on hydroelectricity for generation, and that has its attendant challenges.
Yes. Hydro has got its challenges. Currently, we have a lot of thermal generation, which is like a stopgap, although yes, the contracts are all 20, 30 years. So they're going to be here for some time.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's finally finish off with renewable energy, which you say is an area we're not paying too much attention to.
Renewable energy, everybody's talking about biodiesel and alcohol and ethanol.
Yes.
I mean, that is going to compete with the food chain. But you have third and fourth generation biofuels, which relies on what you call cellulosic material. So anything like waste maize, maize stalks, cuttings from trees, and the biggest opportunity is actually algae from the sea.
Right.
And that kind of renewables is, I think, probably what we should be looking at in Africa because of the opportunities for the biomass we have.
Yes.
But that will kick in maybe another 10, 15 years when the price of crude oil probably hits $120, $130 a barrel on a sustainable basis. Then they'll kick in. But let us not forget that we should be thinking about that within our overall energy policy.
All right, that's a good place to leave it. Patrick Obath, always a pleasure speaking to you.
My pleasure.
Asante sana. There should be an interesting conversation about power, and we're discovering a lot of oil, but on the power side, there's still shortfalls, not just in Kenya, but in Uganda and across the region.